Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again. It's Q&A time. For the last couple of weeks I've been doing it on a Tuesday, but of course Chelsea played Lille this week and got time off today to answer your questions. Thank you for submitting them once again through my YouTube community page. So not quite sure on what day it will be. It may be a little bit later next week as well, but really enjoy doing these. Got some good questions once again, so let's get into them straight away here from Jean-Luc, who asks, do you see Broja and Gallagher breaking into the starting 11 next season? I personally think that another loan would be ideal for Broja and that Gallagher is ready to fight for a spot on the team. Gallagher absolutely should be coming back into this first team. He has scored more Premier League goals now than any Chelsea player, which is an exciting but simultaneously depressing stat to read, because no one would have expected that at the back here, or sort of back in the summer when Gallagher originally went on loan. He's been brilliant, he really has. If you haven't seen his most recent goal for Crystal Palace against Watford, it may seem a little bit simple, but it was the ease to which Gallagher finished after that first touch that, as a goal-scoring midfielder, that's something that Chelsea have lacked. I think he's gold dust, I really do. I think when you've got a player who just anticipation inside the box, keeps on scoring, particularly for a side like Crystal Palace, has become an inspirational figure for them this season. Speaking to people who've obviously been watching him on a regular basis, he needs to come back. He really does. Broja, I'm torn on, because as we'll get to some of the other questions, I think it's very up in the air in terms of what Chelsea's attack is going to look like. And Broja is another player that is kind of outperforming some Chelsea strikers at the moment for a lesser side. And that's a serious question, isn't it? Because that really shouldn't be happening, at least for Lukaku and for other players in this squad. So then you kind of ask the question, if Chelsea are, what happens with Lukaku, and if Chelsea aren't willing to spend that much on another centre forward, who you're going to have, you know, especially if, say, Lukaku's maybe not here next season or someone else leaves in the attack. Do you bring back Broja? I would like to see Broja get a go in pre-season. I really would, given the traits he has. I don't want to see him sold. Selling either of these players this summer would be a really stupid move. I think it really would. So on both, I'd actually like to see both given a chance. Gallagher, absolutely. And the way Tuchel speaks about Gallagher too is really encouraging. He is going to fight to bring Gallagher back, I'm absolutely sure. Lucas asks, how do you see the lineup on Sunday? Do you think Reece James will be fit enough to start? Same with Mount / Cover and Ziyech. I think Reece is absolutely out, or at least I'll say this, I'd be stunned if Reece is in the starting 11. He may be on the bench. Ziyech and Kovacic, it sounds like it's a race to be fit. In terms of my lineup, the debate is, and I'm sure I've got other questions about this today, so apologies, I won't get to a specific question. I'll answer it right now, because obviously Lukaku, Havertz, I've written about it for Football London. Link in the description box below, because I wrote an article about Havertz's performance, and I said this in my post-match Lille review as well. I just kind of think with the sort of the nature of what Tuchel was saying, I could see him sticking with a very similar lineup. The only replacement would be Mount coming in for Ziyech if Ziyech isn't ready to go. I think if Ziyech is ready to go, I think there's a serious conversation there. And you know, Pulisic is off the back of a big goal, but I think Pulisic would be more likely to be dropped out of this team because Mason is such a key player, and Tuchel knows what he can do in a major final. You know, I always bring it up, but he played the pass to Havertz to win the Champions League, and he's a big game player for Chelsea. He really is. He steps up on these occasions. So I still think Mount will be in the starting 11, but I feel Havertz will be playing as number 9. The rest of the team, I would prefer to have Kante and Cover, a more mobile midfield too. And then for the rest of the team, it's tough. Malang Sarr is not a left wing back. So if you're going for 3 at the back again, he always tends to go over Alonso, but I don't think Alonso has done anything to justify being in the starting 11. I really don't. I think his performance was abysmal on Tuesday. So maybe Malang Sarr at left wing back or someone else at left wing back. It's really tough, obviously, for Tuchel to solve that situation. And the other big one is Kepa or Mendy. I'm sorry to Kepa. I'm still going Edouard Mendy, because I just think Mendy is the first choice goalkeeper, and it's a massive game against an amazing team, and we have got Kepa ready for penalties if needed. But at the moment, I think that Kepa will play this game. I always felt that if he didn't play the Club World Cup final, I think he'd play this final. So we'll wait and see. So I'm not radically different to what we saw the other night against Lille, in my opinion. Sergio asks, is a Lukaku for João Felix swap deal a good idea in a fantasy football world? Lukaku would be great at Atleti, and Felix would be magical with Havertz, Ziyech and Mount. No, I personally wouldn't. In a fantasy football world, Lukaku would be banging in the goals currently, and it wouldn't be so awkward watching him play for Chelsea. I can absolutely understand why that transition game under Simeone would absolutely suit Lukaku. João Felix scored a brilliant goal, I think, against Man United the other night in the Champions League, and is a very good talent. I'm not entirely sure that João Felix is one player that I'm sitting here and going, I'd be really excited to see to come to Chelsea tomorrow. And that's not me dissing him. I think he's a great talent. But I feel that there would be probably other players on the market that you could throw to me, like in a dream world, a Serge Gnabry that I'd love to see Chelsea sign, because I think I've just loved watching him play. Jeremy Doku, a Belgian player who I think started to get maybe a little bit more recognition with his performances at the Euros last year, and even Rafinha, I've seen some of the links to him. So in terms of attacking players, there'll be other options in my opinion. So I've got a few questions about Lukaku, obviously, and would I sell him in the summer? So kind of to wrap it all into one, because a few of you asked kind of a similar type of question. It's a tough question to answer because Chelsea broke their transfer record, and considering, say, the Kepa Arrizabalaga situation and other big signings we've made in the past, history tells you that Chelsea don't like to admit failure on signings. If we are saying that Lukaku signing has been a failure, I still think the situation is more nuanced. But the environment, the tone around Lukaku, the feeling of a lot of fans towards him now, I think it's very difficult to recover, and it's just not a very nice situation. And especially if he's out the team for a period and Chelsea start winning, then that sends a very big signal from Tuchel, doesn't it? It's about what happens after. So let's go with a hypothetical that Chelsea somehow sell Lukaku in some way this summer, either loan him or sell him permanently. My big question is, where are the goals coming from? Because that is still the big question mark over this team. Between now and the end of the season, does Kai Havertz prove that he can be that regular source of goals? Does someone else step up? Next season, does Armando Broja suddenly burst into life at Chelsea? Does Conor Gallagher provide the goals? Do we sign someone like a wide player who takes up the burden of scoring a lot of goals? It's still a massive question. There still needs to be more productivity from this team. And this team wasn't creating a lot and scoring a lot before Lukaku arrived. And that is still the massive question, I think, hanging over, because I think it's very easy for people to just dismiss Lukaku and say, let's sell him, he's the big problem. Who is getting Chelsea close to 20 goals in the Premier League next season? I don't think any of us have the answer, because no one in the current squad has shown, other than one guy, Tammy Abraham, since Costa left, and there's your Costa reference for the video, no one other than him has come close in the last 5 years, or however long since Costa left. So still massive questions, but I do agree it's getting difficult for Lukaku, isn't it? And I know that the feeling, the sentiment towards him is probably, there'll be a lot of people who wouldn't mind seeing him go in the summer, but I don't think I would like to think it'd be an easy solution, but I'm very cynical, because we felt that he was going to be the solution to our attacking problems, and we felt other players were going to be the solution to our attacking problems. So as we've seen, it's not quite as simple as maybe it once used to be for Chelsea in the transfer market. Slicer95 Brisley asks, which of our attacking players would you offload if you had to choose one to accommodate, say, Hazard on loan? I have written about Hazard and why I think bringing him back would be a stupid move. I wrote a big piece about it for Football London that you can read in the link below. So I wouldn't be selling any player to bring in Hazard back on loan, even though I love the guy. His time at Chelsea's done, and it should be done. Timo Werner. And if you want my sort of extended thoughts on why I've kind of come to that conclusion and he's first on my list, then go back and watch, I think, was it last week's Q&A or the week before I answered a question about this in sort of more detail. And finally, Jerry asks, why in the hell have we not played to Pulisic's strength? Someone is going to get a hell of a player this summer. Yeah, I've seen this from a few people kind of... I think I answered a question about Pulisic, of kind of someone bringing up his stats, and if you've watched the channel for a long time, several years, I've always been someone who's praised Pulisic and has always defended, I think, his game-changing attributes. I don't think it's us playing to his strengths. I sometimes think it's Pulisic the player, and Joe Tweedy made this really good point, I think, on Alex Goldberg's podcast, and others have as well, and kind of delving into the numbers, and again, the other night proved this. Pulisic is not Hazard. He's not someone, although he can do it, it's kind of a 1 in 10 performance where he can dribble past everyone, and he looks like the best player in the world, kind of that Project Restart form. That's not sustainable. What he is, though, is a consistent threat inside the box. I think he's a finisher. I do think, and it's going to sound hilarious because, you know, in terms of numbers, nowhere near, but, you know, your Raheem Sterling's, your Mohamed Salah, your Sadio Mane, finishing, you know, players who, maybe not Salah because he's gone to another level this year, but players who just players who finish on a regular basis, get themselves inside the box and are really good finishers. Pulisic, I think, is that guy. It's more maybe him kind of establishing that's what he is as a player, because that's his best attribute. It's anticipation. It was the other night keeping himself on side. Yeah, sure, it was in some ways can seem like a pretty simple counter-attacking goal that was made by Kante, but you go back and watch all Pulisic's goals for Chelsea. They are almost number 9 goals. They are not goals that you'd expect of a Hazard, for instance. Completely different. He is a completely different type of player. Although we look at his stature, we look at his speed, the fact he plays off the left, and you kind of have this belief that he takes on the world. In a team that lacks goals, if Pulisic can channel some of that, and we can channel the best out of him to get him into positions where we're not, rather than him starting attacks, it's kind of been the case where we've been, and this is kind of the way Chelsea's team has been kind of going. We were creating so much on the left through Eden for years. It shifted over to the other side now with Ziyech and Reece James. They're the kind of two obvious players, and Mason obviously when he's over there as well. Pulisic obviously on the left, or maybe a little bit more central, cutting in from that side. I think there's a lot of goals there for him. Fitness obviously remains the big question mark, but he's remained fit for, touch wood, a little bit of time now, which is good for his career. So yeah, there's that, and I think there's a fight on between a few players to kind of prove that they should be staying next year, because for next season, because the output from so many of our attackers and just generally hasn't been that good. So there is kind of a feeling that rip it all up and start again, basically, and there's so many question marks over many players, and Pulisic can really distinguish himself, I think, as Ziyech, although he's been scoring, can still distinguish himself as kind of creator. I think Pulisic can be a finisher, and maybe it's about clarifying the type of player he is in this team, rather than one that we kind of expect is just going to be that dazzling winger who just takes on the world, because I just don't think he's that type of player, and I don't think that's sustainable. I think if he can become that guy inside the box that is regularly getting into good positions, high quality positions, along with a centre forward, then I think you'll see the best of him if he can stay fit. So that is it for my Q&A. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. Apologies to those I couldn't get to. Thank you guys for watching. Hit that subscribe button. I may be back before the League Cup final. I'm going to the League Cup final on Sunday, so fingers crossed Chelsea do lift another piece of silverware. It'd be absolutely massive and wonderful to beat Liverpool at Wembley. And yeah, obviously I'll be giving you my thoughts on that game, good or bad, dependent dependent on time, basically. I think hopefully Sunday night I'll have a video out. And of course, going to be doing a Q&A and hopefully some more collabs in the coming weeks as well. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you again very soon.